Good morning, Boston. Welcome into Boston Has Entered the Chat live from the Salem 5 studio. I wish I could say live like Travis Thomas does. It's not natural. Don't worry about it. But you want to hang out with us here on Boston Has Entered the Chat because we go through all of the trending topics from sports and maybe a little bit of music and then some. And then on today's episode, on this lovely Wednesday, we are stacking Red Sox W's. That's right. They pull off a 5-0 victory over the O's. And you know what? Trevor Story is not alone when it comes to the category of a love story. He continues to build statistically while you got Taylor Swift making her own love story. We'll get into all of that later on. Then things become officially official throughout the NFL as they solidify their 53-man roster. Maybe help some of you guys gauge your bets moving into the NFL season. And then if you guys recognize myself and Natalie Noury, well, more importantly, you guys know that we are hockey heads and we get to stop talking about the potential of things and get some more insight and information as Pete Blackburn joins the show, taking us from the football field to the hockey rink. But more importantly, we got to start with Natalie. How's it going? Good morning.
Good morning, Kasey. How are you?
I felt like that was so official. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, no, things are great. Pete Blackburn was outstanding. I was excited to talk to him. Excited to talk some baseball. The Red Sox, they keep me happy right now. They're keeping everyone else happy.
We love happy fans.
No, this is a great show. I'm so happy to be here this morning and some great topics too. It's a good time of year. Good time of year for sports.
I'm excited to have you as my partner in crime, but you can also be our partner in crime on this show by giving us a phone call, tapping into the voicemail line 617-790-0928, or if you're keen on the socials, a quick little tweet over at #NessinChat to make sure you share your thoughts or how excited you were to watch the Red Sox stack a W and, I don't know, watching Giolito just go to work on the mound. Let's start with that because you're talking about an 11-pitch battle that he came out on top of when he struck out Jeremiah Jackson. And I love when these pitchers have their moment. It's not throughout the entire game. It's that one strikeout that just lights them up. You see their leg do something kind of funky and you see like these big guys get twitchy with the excitement. They're trying to they're trying to be a good blend of like super hype and still in command. But Giolito was very much in command, which just kind of starts quieting a little bit the conversation of whether or not we trust where these pitchers lie and how much we can, go to Crochet, go to Bello, and then go to Giolito to have these kinds of performances. So what did you make of them picking up that 5-0 shutout?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, those three, Crochet, Bello, and Giolito, it's great for the Red Sox to have confidence in three strong starters. I love watching Giolito's reaction after he got that last strikeout, and he kind of described it afterwards. He's like, he just kept fouling off fastballs, heaters. Slider wasn't working for me, so I hit him with the changeup, and I think that was just one of the best reactions I've seen, of course, after Garrett Crochet a few weeks ago on the game that we did for the all-women's broadcast.
My gosh.
Talk about reactions, huh? But Giolito, he was looking for the complete game, looking for the no-hitter, didn't quite get it. That's okay. He still went out there, he shoved, and I was as happy for him as he was for himself. You could see it in his face. Maybe some expletives in there. We won't say that, but he was pumped. He was pumped.
We love to see the passion, and I think by now the Boston Has Entered the Chat audience knows that when I'm watching games in my house, I'm a bit of a freak because I'm just sitting there like reacting to everything. So when I saw Giolito excited, I was equally as excited in the comfort of my home. Now, speaking of his ability to kind of try to itch to get that no-hitter, close but no cigar, but you still loved what you saw last night. Last no-hitter was August 25th of 2020. So he was saying that he was seeing fan tweets that kind of let him know, oh my gosh, I'm right around the anniversary of my last no-hitter. So I feel like he had some extra things in the tank to fuel him forward to pull off that performance. But he needed it. And he also talked about just kind of feeding off the energy of a Crochet, of a Bello, as these guys come together and start finding their complete games in a sense. You can tell how close-knit this clubhouse is and how they just continue to be like, if this is what this guy is doing, then I have the ability to do it too. But more importantly, Cora has some thoughts on Giolito's great performance last night.
How good was Gio tonight?
Excellent. Fastball command was on point. The off-speed stuff was great. Under control. We were a little bit short in the bullpen, and he gave us more than enough.
Just to see it finish the way he did, 11 pitch at bat.
Kept throwing strikes. It was a good battle. His last hitter, we were going to Chappie for Gunner, but kept pounding strikes on. That's what you got to do in that situation. If he's out of the ballpark, it's a 3-2 game. You know, we still have the lead, but you walk him, then you can run into trouble. But credit to him and Harvey. They were locked in the whole game, and that was excellent.
For how good he's pitched this year, is it almost easy to forget that he missed last year with the internal brace?
Yeah. One of the things I really liked about him, he was engaged. You know, he was always around, staying during the games. He asked a lot of questions. How we do things, you know, why this, why that, you know, pull somebody early. He's like, why? And like, you ain't doing that next year. I'm like, yeah, well, we will. But just paying attention. And he's a great teammate. Been there, done that. And then we're getting the good version of Gio, and hopefully this continues.
I think we're all looking forward to it continuing, and what a time of the season to be able to pull off results like this. I mentioned one of the biggest things heading into Baltimore, going against this team yet again, was the fact that this team would have a chip on their shoulder because they had a really bad taste in their mouth to probably having one of the worst losses on the season versus the Orioles at Fenway right here. So I felt like we were in for some animations of how well this team can perform, and I feel like last night, all 3 games thus far have been an indicator of that.
Yeah, on the road trip so far, you know, the Red Sox are 5-1, which is outstanding, of course. Best record in the AL since July 1st, 31-16, of course, with last night's involved. But, you know, Giolito, again, you know, 4 pitches to get 3 outs in the 7th. He was efficient. You know, he only walked 1 person last night. As far as the impact goes, you know, I think they had 9 ground outs, so the impact was pretty light on the infield area. You know, they were able to kind of take care of business right there. But, you know, he saved the bullpen, as Alex Cora mentioned. They were thinking about having to put Chapman in there. Didn't have to go there. Another day of rest for him. Use him another time. We know how important it is to conserve arms right now. So, I mean, Giolito going in there and doing that, but also the run support that he received from the team. You know, Trevor Story, David Hamilton. I mean, there were some pretty impressive at-bats in there, and the Red Sox stepping up in all the ways they could last night.
Yes, and you love no more than to see one of the leaders pick up a home run, but more importantly, their 200th career home run. Here's Trevor Story on that milestone, as well as the pitching group for the Red Sox.
Good as Bradish was tonight, how good did it feel to be able to get some damage on him early?
Yeah, it was nice. Obviously, you know, he came back and, you know, had some really good stuff, and to be able to kind of strike first there, you feel like you're ahead more than 1 a little bit. But yeah, he had some good stuff tonight, and yeah, it was good to get up early.
200 number, that means anything to you?
Yeah, for sure. You know, just it's cool. It's a cool benchmark to hit. You know, I try to pride myself on being consistent, and I feel like, you know, the past few months I've done more of that. So, yeah, it's fun. It's a fun thing to say that I've done in my career, but right now it's more focused on the win and chasing down that division title.
Like playing behind Giolito when he's rolling like that.
It's fun. You know, he's working quick. He's attacking the hitters, and feels like, you know, he throws 3 or 4 pitches for strikes, and that's tough to cover all those pitches, especially with his, you know, how big he is and just a little funky too. And he feel like he's done that for 2-3 months straight. So that's kind of what we expect out of him now. And yeah, it's fun to see him doing his thing.
You look at Lucas and Bayo and Giolito lined up this week, and how much has it meant to this team what they've been able, kind of run they've been able to get on the last couple months?
Yeah, no, it's everything. Baseball, you know, I feel like momentum is only as good as your next starting pitcher, and that's where the game's won. Is if we pitch well, we stay in the games longer, and you know, the offense gives the offense more chances to strike, and we can keep the game close, or, you know, like Gio did, throw 8 scoreless. It's huge, and just gives us a sense of relief as an offense too, to feel like, you know, if we don't get it done the first time around, we still have a good chance to get it done.
That's 104 pitches for the big guy on the mound. A lot to be proud of. And as he just basically mentioned there, like the trust within this team. And pitching is one aspect of it. Of course, you mentioned run support moments ago. And I mean, to be a leader in that sense, it's not just the home run that Trevor Story pulled through for this team, but it was their ability to just kind of counterattack a pretty solid performance by Kyle Bradish. Like, he's somebody who was just returning to the mound after Tommy John surgery to go 6 innings and 10 strikeouts, and to know that the Red Sox came out on top of this. That's kind of the efficiency that you want to see as a whole group, and that would from Trevor Story to David Hamilton, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit of like a pitching battle, you want to say? Like,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
between the first 4 innings or so, you know, between the Orioles and the Red Sox, there were 14 strikeouts, which quite a few. But anyways, it was hard to get on top, and the Red Sox found a way to do it. I think Trevor Story mentioning, you know, past few months, I feel like I've done more of that, you know, hitting, getting the offense going. Great time for that to be happening, Trevor. So I think it's a great time for that. But he said we're chasing down the division title. You need all the help that you can get, whether that is from the pitching or the run support. Someone else I wanted to bring up was David Hamilton. I'm happy to see him producing at the big league level. You know, he's had 2 stints now down in Worcester, AAA. He played 4 games in July, 5 games down there in August. But when he was down there in August, just a few games ago, he had 8 hits in 5 games, 2 homers in 5 games as well. And when he's down there, he seems to kind of go out there, he rakes, he's kind of, I don't know, at first his confidence was shaken, but it seemed the last time that he came down to AAA, he was like, okay, I got something to prove. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to put the bat to the ball. The defense is fine. The base running is fine. I'm fast as heck. But yeah, I think he's just, you know, it seems like it's working.
Yeah.
You know, he came back, homer last night, and he drove in 3 runs. So
I love that you mentioned that, and like the potential of confidence being shaken, because being around the Woo Sox, I feel like sometimes guys, when they get set back down to farm, like a lot of the time down there is to overcome the mental hurdle and then reestablish and fine-tune their game.
Right.
I feel like the Woo Sox have a really good lock on making sure that when the guys get there, they can mentally turn things around while they curate their game in order to get the call back up. Would you say that that's something that's very consistent with the Woo Sox?
yeah, I mean, you know, going back down to AAA from the big league level, of course, is I don't want to say it's disappointing, but it's a difference in
It's a little
environment.
blow to the
Yeah,
ego
I mean,
sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly. You go back and you're like, okay, so what do I need to do to get back with Boston? I think something that's a great resource for the players down there is the sports psychologists that are always around.
Oh, brilliant.
So, you know, if you got something going on, they've got someone named Chappie that walks around and he checks in, and you've always got someone to help you, whether it's on the tangible things or the intangible things. Great support system throughout the whole organization, helping players get right to get back with Boston.
Absolutely. Well, you do a great job at making sure that emotions stay in check. We're seeing the Red Sox continue to roll. Are we feeling good about, you know, starting to get a peek into the postseason here?
Yeah, I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited with the pitcher talk, too. We don't really know what's going to happen with Peyton Tolley. We know that his start was delayed a day, and we don't know what the reason is.
If that means anything.
Yeah. I would love to see him in Boston, although I don't want to rush him either. He was in High A Greenville earlier this year. I think he had 6 appearances in Portland, came to AAA. If he made it to Boston, I mean, that would be insane, but I would be excited to see it. I would just be nervous as a mother out there.
The mom of the group. Okay, the biggest question and the more important question really is, if he does get the call up, does everyone at Fenway bring fake mustaches?
Oh, they have to. That's exactly what we did in Worcester. Everybody had the mustaches on, including Yostinson Garcia, myself, pitching coach Dan DeLucia. So we got in character. He's such a character. Peyton Tolley, I don't know if you've listened to interviews or talked to him, but I think everybody out there needs a chance to meet Peyton Tolley, because he's a gentle giant off the mound, a bulldog on the mound, and humor in between. So I love that kid. Wish him the best. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know his start date was pushed back, and we don't know why. So
We'll be keeping our ears to the ground in hopes that we get just more exciting news. I feel like this has been a tremendous season for call-ups and just rallying behind some of your favorite potential Red Sox players. But let us know you guys' thoughts. Would you want to see Tolley coming up pretty quickly? And where does your feelings, emotions, expectations lie for this Red Sox team that is, well, raking right now as a whole, and the pitching group that is showing up? Let us know your thoughts with a quick phone call at 617-790-0928, or shoot us over a quick little text at #NestedChat. But don't go anywhere, because we're going to check out what is trending here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Back at it with Boston Has Entered the Chat here live from the Salem 5 studios. And as promised, it's time to get into what's trending around the world, or what may have been blowing up in your group chat yesterday. If your internet still worked, congratulations, because the news of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift getting ready to tie the knot, well, it had a lot of people in a full-blown spiral. Let's just say this for context. T-Swift does not have to worry that August slipped away into a moment in time. No, because she now has a moment that will last a lifetime. That is the best Taylor Swift reference I have ever done, and probably will ever do in my entire life, because I can't classify myself as a Swiftie, and I only say that because I don't have the calendar alerts. I am not privy to every move going on in her life. I didn't even know if she had a Twitter, but I am a appreciator of Taylor Swift. Anyone that's a lyrical genius, you got me locked in. As a music head, that's for sure. But I am very much happy for these two because they have been in the headlines for 2 whole years now.
Yeah.
And it started with, is this a PR ploy? Are they both just trying to take their careers to the next level? No. Travis Kelce declared his crush and love of August 2023 and beyond that, actually, because they got him on camera after a training camp talking about his crushes growing up. He put a few names out there, but Taylor Swift was one of them. So overall, I think it's safe to say that we are happy for the happy couple.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too. You mentioned like, was it a ploy? Is it a PR thing? Like, let's just keep it straight. Like, these two like don't need each other.
They don't.
You know, Travis Kelce's got a few Super Bowl championships. Taylor Swift has a few albums, so I'm told. But no, I mean, you can't help but feel happy for happy people. You know what I mean? What a beautiful proposal too. The flowers are gorgeous. He really did a nice job there. Good job, Travis.
Good job, Travis.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Swiftie either, but I respect the talent. I respect the dedication, sacrifice it takes to do what she's done.
Oh, yeah.
I am not the type of person that's looking for Easter eggs or anything like that, but, you know, lyrical genius. She's done a great job. You know, she's sang for years about love stories. It's just great to see hers come true and kind of gives us the rest of us some hope.
It certainly does. I mean, that was probably the other thing that broke the internet was the amount of us that were like, maybe there's hope after all. Manifestation might actually work. So I'm sure a few of us are going to be putting some of her top albums on loop and just kind of figuring out where that mindset checks. Or if you're a Summer I Turned Pretty fan, then that's where you'll get the goods of getting the manifestation headset on and going. But you said it perfectly. These two both have fantastic careers to be excited about, and both of them have much to look forward to. Travis with the upcoming season, Taylor with the upcoming album drop. So an engagement on top of all of it is just the perfect little bow, and maybe it'll die down some of the speculation of every move that they make, and they can maybe enjoy this next phase of everything that they've got going on. But as for next phase, we did have a Red Sox schedule release for 2026 already. I know, I say already as if this is like so outlandish, but
no, it felt like,
we've talked about tempering expectations a lot. That's been the theme of today's show, I want to say. And to jump to 2026, well, it still gives you things to be excited about. They stuck with the theme of food, which happens to be what a lot of Boston sports are doing. You're going to be hungry in this one. The Celtics decided to give us a tour of Stop and Shop, which I don't think I'm entirely over yet, but if you are a hot dog fan, a pizza fan, you're seeing all the goods here to get you excited for the upcoming, while we're still in it, for the upcoming 2026 Red Sox season. Now, when I see a schedule release, the first thing that comes to mind are the games that I highlight and circle on my calendar. The calendar for the Bruins looks insane, and my calendar for the 2026 Red Sox already looks pretty crazy because Travis makes a good mention to say that he thinks that this Red Sox team is kind of ahead of their time almost. You got so much young talent that's just getting started. And if they get the opportunity to get postseason experience, just imagine the declaration that's going to put on the 2026 season.
Yeah, I mean, this team is so young. They're experiencing a lot this year. I mean, when I think about all the players who were in AAA earlier this season to who's in the big leagues right now, it feels like 2 totally different seasons.
It is.
I mean, Stinson Garcia is up right now, and we were just talking to him last week, you know, on like Tuesday or whenever it was. So it's like, wow, you know, these kids are growing up, they're leaving, they're moving on. We were chatting with Marcelo Meyer when he was sitting in the hospital for recovery after surgery. We had a bobblehead giveaway night.
Were there like 2 different looking bobbleheads for him?
Yes, there's one. Portland created a bobblehead and Worcester created a bobblehead, but we channeled something a little different. Courtney Cowsill, our designer, she did a great job. She put the bubblegum touch because he's always blowing bubblegum when he's out there playing. It's weird. It's like second nature to him. It's like it's not like a tick or anything, but he can be like ready to swing the bat and
blowing bubblegum.
So it's very personal to him. And yeah, we were sending him photos and he was so excited. He loved it. And he said, I'm going to need about 100 of those. So hopefully we can get
him 100 of those.
But back to the schedule release, I do want to say how exciting it's going to be. And this is like a widespread excitement, I think, to see Rafi Devers stars early on at Fenway.
Very
that's
true.
Gonna be really exciting.
Oh yeah, very exciting. That's where the highlighter really comes out, and I'm sure Marcelo's probably going to be looking forward to 2026 himself
Opening
because
day,
he didn't want to be out of the season quite yet. I thought it would be interesting if everything stays in tune in terms of how dominant certain teams have been, opening up against San Diego on April 3rd. But the thing that stuck out to me the most is the revived rivalry of the Yankees and Red Sox, and you're getting the Yankees early on in April, which I feel like is going to be a fascinating thing because you've mentioned before this is an extremely long season.
Yeah.
So we try not to get too high, too low, but I'm already too high. Like, I just have to say that.
So excited.
Yeah.
No, it is exciting. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, like having the Yankees early and often, you know, I don't know how many times you're seeing them next year at first glance, but I mean, it's going to be a good milestone, a good place to kind of like gauge your team against Aaron Judge and the Yankees. I think it's going to be interesting to see the young kids come back and see what their offseason looks like. I mean, opening day, Marcelo Meyer's return date target. I mean, it's a long season, 162 games. So what you do in March, April, May really is going to be totally flush by the time you get to June.
That is true.
So just maintenance. I mean, that's what it's all about. Start strong and try to maintain it, although that's hard. You know, pitching, injuries, all that kind of stuff. It's like, it's hard not to get too excited, but you feel it.
Yeah,
you feel it.
Maintenance and excitement. They don't always have to go hand in hand, but you can balance them out just enough. And then sticking with the Red Sox, if you guys did pick up on some of the things or information that was getting released yesterday, you got Richard Fitz on a 15-day injured list, but you do have Moran coming up from AAA. I'm not going to try to say it. Do I say it right? Worcester.
Good job.
Ah, look at me go. What do we think of
job.
Moran getting up into the action here?
Yeah, well, you know what? I was just taking a look at his stats. So he only had one outing in Worcester, 2 innings pitched. He allowed 3 hits, 1 run, 1 earned run, of course. Struck out 4. But I feel like it's one of those things where he's moved around a lot. You know, he was in Boston, down in Worcester for 1 outing, back in Boston. So I don't want to look at those numbers and say, okay, it's time to panic. Like, who are we bringing up? No, that's not it. I mean, these guys go through so much travel. Worcester was traveling to Durham, North Carolina this week. So you think about Worcester, Massachusetts, North Carolina, and then up to Baltimore, Maryland. So there's a lot of travel involved. I mean, it's maybe a soft reason, but it's like travel gets to people and movement gets to people. So for this guy to go out, you know, it was fine. 1 outing in Worcester. Sometimes it takes more than 1 just to get back into the swing of things.
Absolutely.
But they've seen him in Boston. They know that he's capable. So I think it's a good option to bring, but there are some other options that they could possibly look at too.
Yeah, and I think mentioning the travel is really important because as we saw with like Roman Anthony, obviously different position, but sometimes you don't even have your things when it's time for you to be situated with either with either the big leagues or going back down. Like there's just so much, and sometimes when you receive that news, well, your stuff is on the truck or on the plane while you are in transition to go elsewhere. So many moving pieces to try to keep these guys head on to make sure that they can execute to the best of their ability. But this didn't raise any concern for you when it comes to pitching as a whole, right?
No, certainly not. I mean, I do want to mention Shane Drowan was reactivated from the 60-day IL, so he is set to make a start with Worcester eventually. He was someone that was, you know, big league conversation prior to getting injured. It's late in the year. I don't know how he'll come back here, but Peyton Tolley, another one to look at. Slayton is looking good, possibly for a return. No activation yet.
A lot of fans' fingers crossed there.
He's looking good. But poor Richard Fitz, I do feel for him. 15 days. It turns out that it was a right arm neuritis. Not really sure what that is. I'm not a doctor, but 15-day IL. You know, let's hope it stays there. I wish him the best, and I feel for all these guys that go through that.
I know every time that they try to get something going, the worst part is to have a hindrance of any sort of injury. But we can rally behind these guys, and you can also rally behind them by getting some merch involved, some wicked wearables more specifically. Check out some of the good merch that we got coming through. You can either represent Boston's under the chat. You can also check out some like Breggy bombs. They've got hoodies. They've got all the goods so that you can be rallying behind your favorite team as well as representing Nesson. But we've got more coming down the pipeline. Like I said, things are officially official across the NFL as the 53-man rosters get solidified and we get an idea of what the identity of the new New England Patriots under Mike Vrabel looks like. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you join us back here in the Salem 5 studio on the other side of this quick break here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Live from the Salem 5 studio, you are watching Boston Has Entered the Chat on this lovely Wednesday, and it's time for us to pivot to some football talk because, as I mentioned beforehand, things are officially official across the NFL. Everyone has solidified their 53-man roster, and now well, the hypotheticals are about to be vetted as we see what these teams are really made of. So in case you missed it, the 53-man roster for the New England Patriots presented a few surprises if you take a look at the results. Now, of course, we knew that Drake May was going to be the QB, but this is probably one of the biggest surprises right here. A tweet by Jeremy Fowler. The Patriots got multiple trade offers for safety Kyle Duggar per source, but his $9.75 million guaranteed salary and how much of it New England would absorb was a hurdle. For now, he remains on the 53-man roster. Now, one of the biggest conversations around Duggar either sticking with the team or moving on from the team was how quickly or lack thereof he was getting acclimated with the new system and schemes that Mike Vrabel was putting into play over there. So we saw a little bit more come to tune for him as the preseason went along, but he got a lot of preseason reps to also make sure that he can get to the other end of figuring out the scheme here. So that was one of the big surprises. But let's just say this team is a little heavy in the wide receiving room, a wide receiving room that has received so much heat from day one. And if you were on the same track as a Travis Thomas who thought like, hey, this wide receiving room doesn't offer much talent and we'll see what brings on Stephon Diggs, now you have your answer. They're going 8 receivers heavy. And some fans were upset about it. Like right here, as you see, Patriots let Braden Swinson go just to carry 8 wide receivers. This is pretty bonkers. But then we also saw, Natalie, that some fans were feeling optimistic regardless of the 8 wide receivers that the roster was continuing to hold on to. We got some predictions of how well the Patriots may perform. At Patriots 12-6 plus a playoff win with a money sign emoji, tongue hanging out. Look, if you guys join in on all the gambling stuff, I'd maybe be a little weary of this particular tweet. Nothing against the excitement, but I would be slightly weary. Another prediction that jumped about was an 8-9 record for the Patriots. I like the simplicity of this one. You know what I mean?
I mean, the other one with a playoff win, I mean, I'm just going to say it right off the bat. Like, you're thinking way too far ahead. Like, I think this is one of those situations. You got to play where your feet are, focus on creating a winning culture and winning game by game. I mean, we know how important it is to simplify the mentality of an athlete and a team trying to kind of get back on track. So playoff win, that would exceed expectations. That would be exciting to see, but maybe a little.
That would be such a jump. That would be such a jump. And we've gone back and forth a number of times, not only here on Boston's End of the Chat, but Patriots show, Foxborough Rush, whether or not we could go above the 5 wins or go above the 6 wins. And I think as a team, we kind of honed in on 8 to 9 wins. But you see, this is why the fan reactions are so exciting, because once you know who officially makes the team, then that either like encourages the confidence or kind of fizzles things out a little bit. So I was slightly surprised to see how many people were like, oh, we're going all the way.
Yeah. I mean, like I've been saying, like we were talking about earlier, I try to like keep it in check.
You're really
like,
good with being realistic. I love it.
Yeah, let's not get too excited. This is Drake May's 2nd year. I mean, we know last year was a little bit in and out for him early on. But I just think it's one of those things where, once again, you got to focus on getting better every day. Take what you do in practice, put that on the field. You were talking about like the 5-win benchmark. I mean, attainable goals, right? Like, set yourself something that you think you can do, try to accomplish it, and go from there. I mean, you don't want to put too many eggs in the basket early on. That's what I'm just going to say that.
You're teaching all of us how to make sure we are mindful of our expectations. Circling the wide receiving room, because this was a big shock for a number of reasons. It was also the fact that most rosters kind of sit around 4 to 6 wide receivers. You're, like, when you're receiver heavy, you're sitting at 6. So getting 8, you got to be cautious of having depth just in case of injuries. Injuries has been a bigger thing season by season, but it also just kind of shows that there might be an opportunity for this team to be a little bit more pass heavy. And like the guys and I have talked about, all signs pointing to a bigger, more established run game. Now, 3 running backs made the team. Obviously, y'all know who my favorite is by now, being Henderson, and what that role may be. But one of the other surprises within this is Kendrick Bourne making the roster, as well as Kayshon Boutte. Now, Bourne, some people have argued that he hasn't had a fair assessment. He had the ACL tear in 2023. He didn't reestablish himself with the Patriots until, I believe, week 5 last season. So, and you're doing that under a completely different system and identity and everything that Mayo kind of presented for this offense last year. So Vrabel's the kind of guy who I feel like spots potential as a coach. And if you fit the mold of what he's trying to create, opportunity will be there. So I think that between needing depth, between making sure that you're putting yourself in a good position in case injuries take a place, then he also sees potential in how guys can step up and get that extra work in and reps throughout the weeks for an intricate system like McDaniels. I mean, he has the opportunity to make wide receivers take that next step in their career. Baker was a shock as well.
Yeah.
Because there was so much hypothetical of him basically securing his spot through special teams, and he was getting advice from other players. And then now it seems like there is a spot waiting for him to really show what he can do in this system. So I feel like the wheel is going to keep spinning until we get some real football going.
Yeah, I mean, the 8 wide receiver thing is interesting to me because it's like you're looking for the perfect piece rather than maybe pieces that are just working. Developmental over time, we know how important it is to just see what you got. I mean, they've done that a little bit, but narrow it down. 8 is just a lot. I mean, I don't know. To me, I would look at 8 and be like, oh, God, like, what are we going to do now?
What's the plan here?
But there's still going to be, like, some changes to come, right? We still have a little bit of time.
Oh, yeah, we do. And there can be pieces that move about also because it's different when you're restructuring from an official roster versus in the preseason as well as training camp. I know that a lot of people were confused because that means that Swinson got the cut. You're talking about a guy who was on the list as a 5th-round steal in the draft, moving on from the Patriots. So we hear the frustrations and the confusion, but we'll only know as time tells and we get closer to week 1 when the Patriots take on the Raiders. But we got another pivot coming for you all. It's time to go from football, from the football field to the rink. If you missed hockey talk as much as me and Natalie did, you don't want to go anywhere. We got Pete Blackburn on the other side to, continue to help us manage our expectations, get a wide view of what to expect from the Bruins and how competitive the East may or may not be moving forward. Call us with your thoughts at 617-790-0928. Send us over some tweets, hashtag NESNChat, but more importantly, stick with us on the other side of this quick break here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Back at it live from the Salem 5 studio here on Boston Has Entered the Chat, and we continue to roll, taking it from the field to the ice because it's time to, figure out where the expectations should lie when it comes to the Bruins season. And we learned that Natalie's very realistic. I'm going to get my life together at age 33 eventually, but we brought in an expert to really help out. Pete Blackburn, joining the show to give us a scope of what to expect. I know, we've all been up since 4 o'clock this morning. What to expect for the Bruins season, but we have to start with the congratulations. You got married this summer. You joined, a lot of NHL players having their wedding day throughout the summer, and you didn't particularly come out unscathed, but how are you, and how did you start wrapping up your summer?
I'm good. I'm no worse for the wear. It's great. Married life is great. Glad they're no longer planning a wedding, but everything's been good, and I'm ready for hockey to come back. So I've enjoyed the summer, but I'm ready to get back to work.
Yeah, the itch really started to hit when it was like we've got those slow points of the summer, and it's like, well, what else are we going to talk about, or what storylines are we going to dig for? We don't have to dig any further, and this is a team that we really don't want to be hanging off our seat wondering what if and what could be. It's time to see what this roster can actually produce. So that just brings me to the first easy breezy question. Now that we're getting closer to training camp, where does your expectations lie in terms of looking at this roster, looking at the offseason moves? Like, how do you feel like fans should approach this season in terms of emotions and expectation?
Well, I feel like the answer I keep giving is that it's not going to be as bad as last year, which is a very low bar to clear, honestly, because the team wasn't good and it wasn't entertaining and it was pretty unwatchable at points. But I think with the stability that they're going to start this season with, hopefully, like no Jeremy Swayman contract dispute, none of the, kind of the outside noise heading into the season, hopefully not as many injuries, especially on the blue line. I feel like there should be a little bit more stability. But I will say, like, the expectations for this team should be lowered a little bit based off of where they started last year, because this is not a team that looks like it's going to contend for, maybe a playoff spot. Like, they might be on the playoff bubble, but I would be surprised. I think that's on the higher end of expectations. So just, like, temper the expectations, be a little patient with this team. It's not going to look great all the time, but I don't think it's going to be unwatchable, and I don't think it's going to be horrendous to the point where they're at the top of the lottery discussion again this year.
I like that term, a little more watchable. I mean, it's a real point, too, because you mentioned all the reasons that we were coming into last year kind of on the edge of our seats with the Jeremy Swayman contract extension, not really knowing what was going to happen there. As far as watchable goes, I mean, what do you think the most watchable point at the start of this season is?
Well, it's probably going to pick up where it left off last year, which was David Pastrnak. Like, David Pastrnak was one of the absolute best players in the entire league last year, and I truly believe that if the Bruins were a better team behind him, he would have entered into the Hart discussion for MVP of the league. And it just, what he did was incredible, and in terms of the percentage of what he drove for the Bruins offensively was truly special. And I think that that's repeatable this year. I've had people ask me, do you think Pasternak's going to be as good this year as he was last year? I don't know if the answer is yes, but I absolutely believe the answer can be yes. I think he's that kind of player. If he's not the best winger in the entire National Hockey League, he's on a very, very, very short list that might only include Nikita Kucherov above him. So I think it's repeatable. The question beyond that is, where is the rest of the offense going to come from? And right now, we don't know the answer to that question. I don't think that's really been addressed to a degree that fans wanted it to be this offseason.
Yeah, well, let's stick with that for a second, because you talk about Pastrnak and obviously him being a top winger in the National Hockey League. Sitting at that number two-part question here. Do you agree with the number 2 spot for the top 20 wingers that came out just a few weeks ago? And then more importantly, the pressure really lies on Morgan Geekie, because everyone is expecting him to be the next largest scorer when it comes to this roster, just considering what he did last year. And sometimes that pressure can waver. Sometimes expecting 30-plus goals or 20-plus goals is a tall task for a very new team.
Yeah, and for Morgan Geekie, I don't expect him to shoot 22% for the rest of his career. Like, that's going to be a pretty tough thing to replicate. But what I will say for Morgan Geekie is that he constantly puts himself in positions to succeed. Like, he did not just ride David Pasternak's coattails that entire season and was just gifted 30 goals. Like, he earned a lot of those goals. He has a great shot. He works really hard, and he earned his spot on David Pasternak's line. And you just hope as a fan that they're able to replicate that to a similar degree this season. And, I think there's not a lot of reason to believe that they can't find success. I just don't know if it's going to look exactly like it did last year. But Morgan Geekie's a really good player who I think has looked for an opportunity to pop for a number of years so far in his young NHL career. And he finally got one last year and took advantage of it. And now the Bruins are, signing up for many more years of that, and hopefully he's able to replicate it.
Now, we've mentioned, and you just talked about, like, not really being able to point to, where the offense might be able to come from outside of Pasta, outside of Geekie. But, it's speculation at this point whether, it's offense coming from the blue line with a healthy blue line, like you had mentioned earlier, or just a few other players who kind of stand out to you on paper without seeing what they can do on ice yet this year. Is there anything that the Bruins can channel aside from those 2 main names that we've spoken about that really might be able to help get some offense going and find the back of the net?
Well, one guy that I'm looking at who kind of has flown under the radar a bit this offseason is Mate Blumel, who they signed from the Stars and their AHL team. Like, he scored a bunch in the AHL. I believe that he was the AHL's leading goal scorer last year. And so that's a guy who can put the puck in the back of the net. It just hasn't really translated or carried over to the NHL level, but he hasn't had a ton of opportunity at the NHL level as well. So maybe with a team that's looking and desperate for goal scoring and where he might have a little bit extra leash, he might hit here. And so I'm keeping an eye on him. He's one of those guys that, you see a lot of these AHL guys score a ton at the lower level, and then they just can never find it at the NHL level. You hope that that doesn't fit his profile. But, right now, again, this team is so desperate for goal scoring that they're going to have to find somebody to kind of rise above the expectations and put the puck in the back of the net. I would have liked to see them go out and sign another winger who was maybe a little bit more of a sure thing. Like, Jeff Skinner was unsigned deep into the offseason, and he ends up with the San Jose Sharks. He's a guy that I would have liked for the Bruins just for even half a season, where he signs a 1-year deal, he puts the puck in the back of the net for the the front half of the year, and then you ship him off at the trade deadline for future assets. Like, that's a deal that the Sharks signed up for. That's probably exactly what they're going to do with them. And I think it's a recipe for success that has worked for teams that know they're not really going to be big contenders heading into the season. And I think that I would have liked that for the Bruins. Just like one more guy that fits that profile.
It's funny because in my notes, when I'm like, oh, we got Pete Blackburn, let's ask him about Blumel, because you mentioned it on the Hockey Hub a while ago. So now I have to actually ask you this. Would you take Blumel over Patra? Because now there's all of this conversation and projections of him beating out Patra at that winger spot on the third line next to Mitten and Tanner Jeannot. I made the case to say that I think that Patrick could be more competitive if he could figure out the winger spot, because now some of the centers that this team has, they're bigger, they're going to be stronger defensively for one. Mitten is supposed to be able to do that as well as be able to find the back of the net. And then you've got a guy like Blumel who, like you said, he needs to be able to score at this level, but you're playing potentially on a line with Tanner Jeannot who can create space out there for him. So would you continue to make the case that Blumel needs to be this guy on the third line?
Well, it's a boring answer right now, but I think that like those jobs should be up for grabs in training camp. Like those jobs should be earned, whether it's Patra, whether it's Blumel. It should not just be given. Like, this roster is not good enough and it's not established enough to really hand off spots. So if Patra comes in and he earns that spot, and I do like the idea of him working on the wing until he kind of rounds out his game and becomes a more reliable guy down the middle, I like for him to build his game on the wing. And I think that those center spots are not locked up by any means. Even Casey Middlestat at the 2C, Fraser Mitten at 3C, Sean Corelli at 4C right now. Like, I don't think any of those are rock solid. So if he comes in and has a really, really good camp and makes it hard to give away that roster spot or give it to somebody else, then by all means, give it to Matthew Patra. But he has a lot to prove based off of what we've seen over the past year or so.
On the topic of Patra, I mean, last year, up and down a little bit. It wasn't really a sure thing if he was going to stay in the NHL or where he was going to go, to the point of that AHL, NHL, gray area. You talk about Blumel needing the opportunity, needing the experience. Do you think there is any kind of, I don't know if you want to call it, miscommunication or lack of preparation, or what is it that it will take to allow these guys who are in AHL and need that NHL experience to get to the level they need to be at? Without the pressure induced, of course. But, like, what's it going to take? Is it difficult? What do you see from that transition that, might help develop NHL players from the AHL a little bit further?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of leash is needed sometimes with certain guys. And I think that it's been a point of frustration for Bruins fans for a long time now, where you've got these young guys who come up, like a Fabian Lysell, and it feels like they're not really given a whole lot of runway to succeed. But the thing is, when guys like that have come up in the past, they've been joining a really good team that's been competitive and in the mix. And so it's hard to really let those guys figure it out over a prolonged period, because you're trying to win hockey games every given night. So with a team like this, and, where it seems like they're more in the middle or more just in sort of a bridge year or a transition year or whatever you want to call it, there may not be that pressure or that immediacy or urgency to have these guys figure it out right away. And that could help some of these younger guys who are looking to round out their games and get that experience and figure things out at the big league level. So hopefully that's the case. And Marco Sturm has been an AHL coach. He knows how to work with young guys. The one thing that I constantly heard about Sturm when they hired him was that he's such a good player coach for young guys. And I think that that's not a coincidence and not an accident by hiring this guy for this team. So I think he's going to give them plenty of reason and plenty of room to figure it out. And I think that they're going to have an opportunity to succeed. And if they don't, then it's back to the AHL, and that's just how the business goes.
Plenty of room. I love it. But it also makes the case of how competitive training camp will be, because the way that he spots potential in players, I feel like he's not going to be quick to hand out any spots. Pete, got to get your opinion here. Do you trust this top six, for one? For two, who in this top six actually needs to step up this season and put some points on the board for this roster? I mean, I make a case to say that Elias Lindholm started to kind of find himself a little bit towards the end of the season. But as you said, I mean, it wasn't really the most flattering season, and therefore we don't know how to mark the scale or who really tipped the needle there.
Yeah, the answer to the first part of that question, do I trust the top six? Absolutely not. This is a top six that includes Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat, Victor Arvidsson, like all guys that have not exactly profiled as top six players over the past couple of years. I will say, based off of your point there, I do believe Elias Lindholm can be much better this year. And we saw it at points last year where he looked good playing with Pastrnak and, at points Marchand. So, maybe the first year jitters out of the way, settling in Boston will help him. Maybe just the stability of the team itself could help him. But I think he's a better player than what we saw last year, and he can be a top 6 player. The rest of it, though, outside of Pastrnak, I think there's a lot of question marks. And Casey Middlestat, I wouldn't even be surprised if he wasn't on the team by the end of next year because of his situation and what we hear about him and teams not liking him. So we'll see. I think he's got a lot to prove, and I think that a lot of these spots in the top 6 are very much in flux. So we'll see how different it looks at the end of the season based off of where we start.
Where these top 6 positions are kind of in flux and not really solidified yet. One of the points that you brought up that I haven't gotten a chance to speak to you yet, Pete, so I'm excited to ask this question just about Marco Sturm and the culture that he can create, knowing that he's a player coach, knowing that he can kind of maybe create an environment where it's not time to try things anymore, but be comfortable in who you are, embrace your playing style, embrace who's around you. Do you think culture and team identity is going to be strong this year under him? And do you think, maybe top 6 can emerge through that kind of style?
I think it needs to be strong this year. I think that's one consistency that the Bruins have had for a long time. And now it seems like it's kind of been removed from the equation because a lot of these guys are gone who helped build that culture. So they need that culture. They need that stability, and they need that identity that they kind of lost throughout last year. I think the identity was a big focal point of this offseason, which is why you went out and got guys like Tanner Jeannot and Mikey Eyssimont. They want to get back to being very, very difficult to play against. And I think that Marco Sturm knows that and knows that that's what the front office wants from him. So he's going to drive these guys. And again, he's known as a player's coach and a guy that his guys really like playing for, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy on these guys. I absolutely believe that Marco Sturm is going to really drive these guys, and he's going to want this team and this identity, even if they're not the most skilled or successful team in the world. He doesn't want to be an easy win on a calendar, and that's what the Bruins, I think, are trying to accomplish this year.
Okay, so we're hoping and thinking that we can get a little bit further above 76 points closing out a regular season. You mentioned the identity of becoming difficult to play against, and that's one thing that I think some of us can find some confidence in. How do you think the Bruins fare in the Atlantic Division alone before we kind of branch out to the East? Because there's a number of teams like the Florida Panthers that just continue to maintain their roster. For that top 20 list, you got 3 players off the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's not biased, everyone. I swear I didn't make the list. But how do you think a team like this, who will be difficult to play against, who might be a bit more stout defensively, Swayman has something to prove, fare in the Atlantic Division?
Yeah, I believe in all those things, but I still look at the Atlantic Division, and I think the Bruins are one of the 2 worst teams in the division. And it's not necessarily a massive indictment of the Bruins. It's a little bit of an indictment against the Bruins, but the Atlantic Division is really good. And there are so many teams there that if you want to break it into tiers, you obviously have the Florida, the Tampa, and the Toronto at the top. And I think that those are the clear best teams. But Montreal took a huge step last year. They're a really young team that surprised people, and I think they got better this offseason. I think you look at Ottawa, they took a big step last year. Whether they continue that, we'll see. But Linus Ullmark was great for them down the stretch, and I think that's a team that could continue forward momentum. You've got Detroit, who finally seemed to figure out their goaltending. I think they've got some question marks as well, but they're maybe in the same boat as the Bruins and the Sabres. I think that's the bottom tier of the Atlantic Division. What I will say is I think that any of the teams in the Atlantic Division could be in a playoff mix towards the end of the year. Obviously that's probably not going to happen, but I think on paper, they're all good enough to at least be in and around the playoff bubble. And that's going to be tough for teams to separate themselves, especially a team like the Bruins, who seems like they're kind of towards the bottom of the barrel right now.
And I do want to bring up the goaltender conversation. Of course, your team is as good as your goaltender. The goaltender's got to be in there and competing every night to keep you in the game. But Swayman, I do want to ask about him. Going into last year, we weren't really sure where things stood. This year, we know what to expect. But I want to ask you, what do you need to see from Jeremy Swayman to feel confident in this team and know that they do have that postseason push alive, I guess?
Yeah, I think that he's going to benefit from the stability, both in his own situation, but also the blue line, if guys can stay healthy. It's easy to forget that Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm missed huge chunks of last year. And you want to critique Nikita Zadorov for the first year that he had, sure, go ahead. But, this is a guy who played tougher minutes and tougher matchups than he's probably built for, and more that he was brought in to face. So a real tough set of circumstances for Swayman last year. And it's important to remember that, like, from December to February, he was one of the best goaltenders in the entire National Hockey League. He was hovering around like the 915, 920 save percentage mark. And that's when things kind of seemed like they were maybe getting a little bit steadier for the Bruins during the course of last year. And obviously the bottom fell out and it wasn't great to finish off the season. But I believe in Jeremy Swayman being that kind of guy again, a 915. If he ends up around 915 for the save percentage, I think you're more than happy with that based off of where goaltending has sort of progressed in the NHL over the past 5 to 10 years. And like, that's a mark that he would absolutely be earning this contract. And I think that's going to be a huge pressure point for not only Jeremy Swayman, but the Bruins fan base and organization as a whole this year is, what does Jeremy Swayman look like? And is that contract going to look like a mistake in year 2? Because year 1 obviously didn't go to plan, but there was enough that was moving around that you could say, all right, maybe this is just an outlier year. Now year 2 is when you start making your determinations on whether or not that contract was a mistake. And so there's a lot of pressure on the goaltending position.
Yeah, 100%. And it all comes back to the importance of training camp, which is where we'll finally learn where this team could potentially lie. Pete, thank you so much for taking the time. Make sure you guys check out Pete's podcast, What Chaos, as well as check him out on CBS Sports, correct? Because that's where you go talk about the league as a whole. There is going to be a lot of exciting things and surprises. A number of teams drafted extremely well, so make sure you keep keen on Pete's content. Pete, thank you so much for waking up with us here on Boston Has Entered the Chat.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, guys, it's almost a wrap for Natalie and I here on Nesson, but Boston Has Entered the Chat continues over on Nesson Nation. Y'all know the deal, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on Nesson and 9 a.m. over on Nesson Nation. Make sure you bring those phone calls in, 617-790-0928. Don't let Alan be the only one calling us throughout the show. He's got the greatest opinions, but we want to hear from all of you. And then if you're more keen on social media, hashtag Nesson Chat brings you into Boston Has Entered the Chat so that we have the ability to interact with you all to talk about all of these fun and exciting topics. Nat, that just got me so excited for hockey season. What about you?
I know. I mean, it felt natural. It's like, okay, like the itch to get going now.
Yes.
I'm like, ooh, okay, like the terminology is coming back to me after a long baseball season. No, it was great. Pete had a lot of great insight, and like you'd tee him up on something, he'd take it in a direction you didn't even think of. Just some great insight from him.
Absolutely, and he does so good with just kind of branching out and give you the bird's eye view. So I'm feeling a little bit better and a little bit more settled in, but the best way to stay settled in is to stick with us on Boston Has Entered the Chat and go over to Nesson Nation and continue watching.
Right now.
That's going to be a wrap for us here on Nesson. Don't forget, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on Nesson, 9 a.m. on Nesson Nation. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.